And we're recording you.
Awesome. So hi, my name is Ramiro Navarro Jr. or RJ for short, and I'm running for state representative of House District 21. For those who aren't too familiar with my story, I'm a born and raised Kaiserite, graduated from McNary High School and deployed to Iraq soon after having my first son. Returning from combat, I struggled with undiagnosed PTSD and turned to drugs and alcohol to cope. That landed me in prison for 18 months, day for day, no good time, no work time, on my first felony charge for marijuana, which is legal now. I struggled with recidivism after being released because there were no opportunities for correction in our correctional system. I really didn't start to recover until after I was offered the opportunity to enter into a criminal justice reinvestment program with the Housing First model that also paid for 3 months of rent or that also paid for 3 months of college. And all I had to do was stay clean and sober. During that time on campus, I experienced peer support for the first time at the Veterans Lounge at Chemeketa, which was filled with people who had experienced what I went through and told me that you can recover. That's when I started my recovery, and I attended college for business management using my GI Bill. I ended up leaving. I attended Chemeketa for business management, but I ended up leaving a little bit early before I could get my degree because I had an incident where my partner and I, we lost our first child. She had a miscarriage. And that was really tolling on us. And we ended up having to step back and figure out where we were going to go from there. And that's why I'm a big supporter of Planned Parenthood, by the way, because when we were struggling with that, we went to them and they were like, you were not alone. We felt like we were the only ones that this had ever happened to. And I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent now, but that's why I support Planned Parenthood, because of that lived experience. And so after that, I ended up being sought out from this nonprofit organization here in Salem for the work that I had done at Chemeketa Community College. And I was offered the opportunity to create and manage their veteran peer support program over at Project Able. That program started out as something that was non-existent, and then it grew to serve veterans all across the state, even including vets at OSP, where I once resided, and at the Oregon State Hospital. And sorry, I'm starting to tear up a little bit, but yeah, so that's a little bit of my story and why I'm running. I'm running because I know personally that we have some big gaps when it comes to providing access to mental health services here in our state, more specifically for veterans is my lived experience, but I know that that's the same issue for everybody. I'm running because as a father of 5, I know how crucial it is that we invest in public education, access to childcare, and preserving our environment. That kind of answers the top 3 priorities that I have is veterans. It's really hard to pick, but my top 3 are veterans issues, public education, and I think that the access to childcare is part of that. So that's where I can get those 2 in one. And then preserving our environment. I mean, we live right here on the Willamette in House District 21. And part of really what supported me in my recovery and not turning to drugs and alcohol again was self-care. So for those that are a little bit unfamiliar with self-care, at least the way that I practice it is that there's 4 different models. So you have time in nature, you have activities, you have diet and exercise, and then the other is mindfulness, some sort of mindfulness technique, could be meditation for others. And I practice that on the water. I practice that kayaking, I practice that hiking, I practice that out in the air in the community, feeling the sun on my skin, doing everything except for turning back to drugs and alcohol. So that's why I labeled those as the top 3. I mean, obviously housing is a big issue as well. Access to mental health services and healthcare for all, I think is something that is definitely up there as well. And yeah, so what are the skills and lived experience which make you the best candidate for the position? I think that partly my education, going to community college and dealing with some of the programs that I dealt with there, managing some programs there, and then moving on to manage the Veterans Peer Support Program over at Project Able. I think is a really great experience. I left Project Able back in December, and I pursued my own business, which is what I went to school for. And so now I own Oregon's Finest Automotive, which is a shop that specializes in the restoration of classic vehicles. We do a lot of frame reinforcement. We do a lot of lowrider cars, if you guys are familiar with those. But yeah, we do a lot of classic restorations, and my goal is to build the shop up big enough that we can pioneer gas to electric conversions for these classic vehicles. And I think that that skill is something that makes me really qualify for the job, and advocating for small business owners and knowing what they have to go through. And then when it comes to my lived experience, I mean, I'm a Kaiserite, born and raised. I have lived in the community here for 32 years now. I'm a person of color that's experienced some crazy stuff that's happened in the community. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kaiser. They used to segregate all of the English as second language learners to Kennedy Elementary over on the southeast side of Kaiser. And so I've experienced that. I've experienced the cops pulling us over because we fit the description of somebody. So I mean, that's something that doesn't get taught in school. And that's something that you really have to experience to be able to advocate for or against. And then my experience dealing with homelessness and realizing what worked for me, and and also recognizing that recovery is nonlinear. So for other people, for me, it worked that I had a housing first model that paid for 3 months of rent and allowed me to get back on my feet and apply for benefits and things like that to help me out. That might not work for everybody. Some people might need more than 3 months. People might need less than 3 months. So really having that flexibility when it comes to housing options, I think is crucial. And I know that because of my lived experience living with other people that were experiencing that. And then same goes for mental health issues. I mean, knowing the gaps in the system when it comes to providing mental health care, and how we could better work with the CCOs here in the county to be able to provide services that are equitable and inclusive, so that people all have that same access to support. I could go on for days with some of the experience I have. But
I just want to add something. Just your exposure and your experience with CCOs, to me, gives you an advantage, because there's a lot of people that have regular healthcare. They don't know what CCOs do. They don't know what coordinated care organizations do in Oregon, how they mend together a lot of different pieces of the support systems that people need. And just by the privilege of the fact that we've had jobs that had benefits that came with it, there's a lot of people that don't know what CCOs are. I've worked with them on the health side, so that's a big plus, just so you know. I mean,
yeah, thank you.
Blow that horn a little. That's a big deal. And we're as a state, we should be really proud of what we're doing with CCOs. It's pretty remarkable stuff.
Yeah, CCOs are doing really great work here in Marion County. We had before it was Pacific Source, it was the behavioral health, BCN, the Behavioral Care Network. And BCN was doing some really awesome work trying to be equitable in the support that they were providing to people. They were buying AC units for people that were struggling with the heat. And this was before, the heat waves. They were already ahead of that curve. And then some issues happened with the state contracts, and BCN ended up getting bought out by Pacific Source, who now has the contract here. And they're trying, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with that organization. But yeah, thank you. I really do agree that having that experience of knowing what CCOs are and how they work within our communities to best serve the people that live here is really an experience, and not something that you can read in a book.
Yep.
So why do you feel that you are the strongest candidate to win the general? I think that I have for those that aren't familiar, so winning the primary would put us in the general with Kevin Mannix. Kevin Mannix is the
wow, that hurts to think about.
Yeah, so Kevin Mannix is the father of mandatory sentencing, and that's part of the reason that I got 18 months day for day, no good time, no work time on my first felony charge, when what I needed was mental health care. That's what I needed. I didn't need jail time. I tell a lot of people that if I wasn't a criminal before I went into prison, I sure as hell was when I got out. Because those aren't recovery environments. There isn't a whole lot of opportunities to recover there. And in fact, there's actually more barriers, I think, in there than there is out here to be able to be able to correct yourself and recognize that what you were struggling with isn't normal. In my case, that was mental health.
Mhm.
But yeah, there was so I think that having that lived experience of knowing how horrible mandatory minimums are and how horrible the correctional system is, and being able to be the voice against that. Because what we saw with Measure 11, which Kevin Mannix wrote, was that the cost, what we ended up funding for corrections skyrocketed and education stayed the same. And so we lost out on millions and millions of dollars, and children lost out on education funding, over the last 30 years because of how much we've invested into the correctional system, when really we could have served our communities better. So I think that I am one of the strongest candidates to run against Mannix, because I can tell that side of the story. And because I know that he's absolutely going to toot his horn about Measure 11, even though everybody knows that it's horrible. Let's see. Sorry. And
No, that's pretty powerful stuff. I can't wait to see that face to face.
yeah, absolutely. And then just to make sure that I'm answering everybody's questions here.
No, you are. And just with that, I want to open it up to the audience so others can ask questions too. Are there any questions from the audience?
I'll ask a quick question. RJ, knowing that Republicans have lots of money, how are you able to compete monetarily against somebody like this? It's going to be tough road to hoe, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the last campaign I ran was for the same area, Kaiser, but back then it was House District 25, and we were experiencing the same issue. Granted, Bill Post was my opponent at the time, and he probably didn't have as much as name recognition as Kevin Mannix does, at least here in Oregon. So we ran a tough race against him. We were able to raise $15,000 to his $85,000, and he still won by his smallest margin against our campaign, and in a district that was conservative. And so now the Democrats have an edge in this new district. And so we're still going to not let up. We're going to continue fundraising. Right now, we've set a goal for the primary to raise about $5,000. And we've pretty much hit that goal already. So we're really excited about that. We want to continue fundraising, though. We're not going to let up, because we're going to have to make sure that the momentum keeps up through the general, so that we can compete with money that Mannix is going to bring to the table. In that, we've asked for a lot of support from organizations that contribute to campaigns. So to date, I have endorsements from the Working Families Party, from Becun, OLCV, the Oregon Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers in Oregon, Color PAC, Planned Parenthood, Pro-Choice, and SEIU. And those are just the ones that I know of, since the last time I checked my inbox was probably a couple days ago.
Just a quick follow-up. If you have a website, do you want to put that in the chat so people have access to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and figure out how to get into the chat here.
I don't know. Does anybody else have questions that they want to ask?
I do. RJ, I actually met you through one of the OLCV calls. But tell us, are there any other experiences you've had, like running for House District 25 before? Are there any other committees or other assignments you've had in terms of public service that we should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently sit on the board of the Salem Area Mass Transit District, or as Chariots, some people are more familiar with. And I am a big advocate for going green when it comes to our public transportation. So I was able to, I was honored to vote to make the purchase of 5 new electric buses that are going to be here in the community soon. We also
cool.
got some electric charging or their magnetic charging pads. So they kind of work how iPhones charge, where you just park the bus over the top of the charging pad and it charges the vehicle while it's en route. It's amazing. Technology is awesome. And so yeah, aside from that, which is really awesome, which is for me a pleasure, because while I was in the military, I was a mechanic, so I got to work on diesel vehicles and gasoline JP8 vehicles, and I know that they're horrible for the environment, and so to be able to bring that experience over to Chariots and advocate for that, and also, you know, advocating for a transportation system that's inclusive and welcoming to all. In that we're changing a lot of the ways that things are done versus how they were done traditionally. So one of the things that we're going to be seeing here within the next few years is the touchless pay system. So, you know, for people that don't always carry cash or that don't have a card, they can use their phone. And so that they're that way they're not fumbling for change. And the really awesome thing about this new pay method is that it caps. So if you jump on the bus 15 times in a day and you think that you're being charged that $1.50 a ride, it's not. It'll cap out at the amount of the day pass, so that you don't get overcharged for that, which is really awesome for people that are you know, fumbling for cash all the time for their rides.
Hey, RJ, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to give you 1 more minute to make kind of like your closing statement, if you could, for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I would really appreciate your guys' support, because we're going to need it in this run against Kevin Mannix for House District 21. I really could use your help. If you can't contribute to the campaign with funds, if you could contribute by liking, sharing, commenting on our post on social media. That's RJ for Oregon on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can sign up to volunteer on our website. There's many ways that you can give. It's not always a financial ask that we're asking for, because we could use the people in this election. And so that's where we look forward to having y'all.
Very cool. Very cool. Are there any other questions from the audience? I don't want to keep anybody hanging if they had a question of RJ.
Dave Skinner, did you have a question? Guess not.
Figured out how to unmute. I'm fine now. No, actually, I just had a comment for Ramiro. Good job, and I kind of share your life experience. So I would love to chat with you sometime offline. I'll get in touch.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Dave. Thank you.
Cool. Very good. RJ, thank you so much. It's great to see you again, and thanks for sharing your story with us. And it was very, very informative and helpful. Thanks, man.